the hell is he talking about? He ain't black. You are from Korea.
I have reached my limit for brain dead takes regarding racial topics in the K-pop community. It is actually baffling how little critical thinking, nuance, and basic logic exists surrounding something so serious as alleged racism, but that's what you get when dealing with entitled stans. Now before we begin, I just want to clarify that number 1, I am black, and if you don't believe me, that's really not my problem. And number 2, I fully understand that racism is still an issue plaguing the world, and so, I understand how situations such as this gain so much attention and somewhat reasonable concern from fans. However, that doesn't make the controversy surrounding Wavy and Tarzan right or even logically sound. Oh, and also, when I say Twitter and PC, I'm referring to people who say goofy, emotionally charged, and mind-boggling things like this online and think they ate down when in reality everyone with a brain and the ability to think outside of themselves is scratching their head. Now let's continue. Just a day or so ago, Extraordinary Heroes member Junhoon's misconstrued comments on scientific research he read were going wild, and people were expressing that they thought he was racist. But today, a whole new flavor of confusing racial sentiment was on my TikTok timeline. Wavy's teaser for their upcoming song/album titled Big Bands is sparking outrage from normal people in Twitter and PCs alike. In the teaser you can see the members wearing shice tees, white tank tops, and baggy, sagged pants. Iconic streetwear attire in the United States that, while being associated with gang culture, when used as aesthetic and conceptual elements, can evoke a badass and cool vibe, which is clearly what the creative directors were going for. However, some stans chose to perceive this as an example of cultural appropriation. Because obviously black people own the concept of gang activity and streetwear. You'd have to be a little hobbit living under a rock to believe that these fashion and design choices are not only emblematic of black American culture, but also so sacred that nobody else should be allowed to use them. As a black American myself, I can say with 1000% confidence that my culture is not criminality, and while we may have had a hand in the development of certain aesthetics and pop subcultures like this which have roots in gang culture, that doesn't suddenly mean that we own a monopoly over it. These outfits Wavy are wearing for stylistic purposes are no different than the clean girl style outfit you got from TikTok shop. This is an aesthetic, not cultural garb. And it's funny because Wavy had similar styling with gold chains, baggy clothes, and bandanas in their promotions for Frequency last November, and none of you cared then. A telltale sign of flawed logic is inconsistency in applying it. This brain-rotted mentality is not helping anyone, it just gives Twitter and PCs a reason to have a pity party for the weak. Not to mention, it fuels the ever-growing redundancy of the terms racism and cultural appropriation. If you keep throwing these heavy terms at every non-issue that makes you feel icky, eventually nobody is gonna care anymore, and when real racism takes place, we'll all turn a blind eye. Black American and urban pop culture are slices of American culture, and as a Black American I absolutely love seeing aspects of my country's material culture be used in a way that can showcase its style and beauty, and I don't care who does it. Black, white, Korean, Puerto Rican, Martian, I couldn't care less as long as everyone involved is having fun. If anything, I honestly want to see more K-pop groups embrace these aesthetic elements and interpret them in the K-pop style. I want to see these two pop culture mediums mix and evolve further, and I'm sure you do too, to some extent. But that can't happen if you look at any non-black person doing something you wrongfully perceive as black and immediately write it off as a racist attack. Tarzan wearing cornrows doesn't hurt you. Wavy wearing shiesties doesn't hurt you. You have no right to tell these people what they are allowed to wear, say, and do. Currently, there are AI slop videos of black women eating fried chicken and acting like they have no decorum, gaining millions upon millions of views on social media and actually causing harm by portraying the same false narratives and stereotypes about black people that you all claim to want to dispel, but then fall back on as your only defense and proof of this so-called appropriation. You're amalgamating a bunch of arbitrary aspects of a certain group of people into a monolithic standard that you are then using as a rubric to police how others interact with pop culture, and then cherry pick who you dish out your judgment to. That's insane. Honestly, if you truly find the idea of a non-black person wearing braids, using certain slang, or dressing in street style triggering, you and your mindset are the problem. You are not being victimized when someone who isn't black wears braids, talks like a rapper, or dresses in a hip-hop inspired style. Your enemy is not Wavy, Kiss of Life, Young Posse, Tarzan, or anyone else you've all sacrificed at the altar of phony disingenuous activism. It's your own view of the world. You are your problem, and the K-pop community is done giving you pity points when you act out. We're done allowing you to misuse the serious issues of bigotry, racism, and anti-blackness to guilt trip us into affirming you to prove that we're on the good team, whatever that happens to mean in the moment. And it's so ironic because while these instances revolve around anti-black racism, an overwhelming amount of black stans love to use these situations as an excuse to air out their anti-Korean and anti-Asian sentiment. As sad as it is to say, anti-Asian racism is rampant in the black community. A lot of the people who sound off and spout anti-blackness this and appropriation that, are just anti-Asian and automatically expect the worst from East Asians due to the complex history of the social climate between Black Americans and East Asian immigrants in America. Hence the outrage around All Day Project member Tarzan. Since long before he debuted, Tarzan's persona and style have consistently reflected inspiration from hip-hop, American streetwear, and new money rapper aesthetics. It's clear that he takes this aesthetic and lifestyle seriously. So, seeing how comfortable and natural Tarzan looks in the whole confident rapper persona and aesthetic, the Black Label's stylists took this into account when styling him. Simple. However, it's not that simple in the minds of Twitter NPCs. Whenever an Asian person does something that falls outside of the norm for Asian people, they can't help but see it as inauthentic, performative, or being a culture vulture. They've already decided in their head that Asians are problematic and incapable of engaging with anything outside of their cultural bubble innocently and genuinely, so whenever they see an opportunity to affirm that narrative, they take it, primarily defaulting to a uniquely unnerving "we are the blueprint" narrative, insulting Asian people and acting as if black people are owed credit for the creation of all relevant pop culture and thoughtlessly discounting the initiative of all other groups who had a hand in platforming certain media. If any other group like white or Asian people said these things, we'd bash them without a second thought. Yet when black stans echo this sentiment, they receive not just grace, but concurrence not just from those who agree, but those who think that if they don't agree, they are problematic or too uneducated to understand. Now, you may say, oh but Slayong, it's so hard and stressful being a black K-pop stan for these exact reasons. It's like we can't have anything. Of course, being a minority in any subculture or fandom can be troublesome. I'm not discounting that. I myself have experienced bullying, racism, and ableism numerous times on my page, so I'm the last person who would ever open their mouth to diminish someone else's experience with bigotry, but I've been seeing this sentiment for years and years now, and it's only ever gotten cornier. Let's be so honest right now. Nobody is forcing you to log into your fan page. Nobody is making you open Spotify and give Blackpink their coins. You are actively choosing to continue to be a K-pop stan every day. From my personal perspective, if I thought K-pop was so bad, so offensive, so racist, I would unstan and never look back. But you can't bring yourself to do that. Why? You're old enough to think for yourself and discern what aligns with your beliefs and what doesn't, so why keep coming back to something you've consistently expressed makes you uncomfortable? It's almost like maybe, deep down, you secretly understand that it's not really that serious. But anyways, the topic of whatever cultural appropriation even means and how it relates to K-pop is one that will always get a massive eye roll from me, because from the start, it has never been about actually preventing racism. It's simply the weaponization of real social issues to keep others in line, because when you allow yourself to get triggered by something that isn't triggering to literally anyone else, Your first instinct is to control your environment instead of controlling yourself. That's why it honestly just made me sad and kinda upset to see Kyo from P1 Harmony come out and talk about cultural appropriation.
Is that on your mind, cultural appropriation, while you're creating, while you're coming up with your look, while you're sharing your story with the world?
Of course. Because I believe it's a responsibility, and I also feel like if you're gonna have that big of a platform, you need to be able to respect and appreciate all cultures without appropriating them. And so I feel like whenever it comes to, you know, our styling or like, you know, our music or whatever, it's always a sensitive and topic that we always have to think once, 3 times, 4 times about, like, in every step of the way, like visually or like musically or like, you know, the language itself. Like obviously there's like AAVE and like a whole bunch of other like cultural stuff that's like, you know, is very sensitive, and so we need to respect that, and I feel like it's a responsibility too. So I feel like definitely it's something that we're always thinking about and taking action about.
While I'm somewhat glad Kyo said what he said, it's hard to be proud of him or even truly happy about it because he said it under social duress. Even though his words were technically coming from a positive place that just wants his fans to trust him, saying those things, while objectively good and unproblematic, will never serve him well. He didn't prove he was trustworthy, he proved he was willing to walk on eggshells and affirm the flawed mindset many of his black fans hold. It's just spinning the knee to these Twitter NPCs and further empowering their illogical, volatile, toxic thought process. Sure, Pieces didn't have anything to say about their outfits during promos for their mini-album Sad Song, which is just oddly ironic and borderline hypocritical when you think about it, but the moment these people change their mind about what is offensive and what he can and can't do, him and P1 Harmony will be on the chopping block. It's an almost abusive dynamic. You can only do, say, and wear what I say is okay for you too, but only when I'm not offended by it, which is whenever I don't feel like being offended, which is based on whether or not it benefits me, which is only sometimes. Moral of the story, this is not racism. This is not appropriation. And you are nobody's blueprint. Stop yapping about how you can't stand Korean people and K-pop for the most minuscule things and locate something meaningful to talk about. Until you can do that, take a seat for me.